Well, hello everybody, back again with Kathy Biehl. We are here looking at more post 2024 election astrology, and we're going to try and really kind of rattle through the news and the aspects today. But before I do, I'm Louise Edington, Cosmic Owl Astrology on YouTube and everywhere, Facebook, all the places. And, I do a lot of video and podcasts, and I write every day on Substack, where I'm also Cosmic Owl Astrology. And I have two levels of membership, one on Substack and YouTube, and one on my website, louiseeddington.com. And my rates are going up on July the 1st because I'm so busy I could not breathe barely. So I'm and I've got a book coming out on July the 13th on Dwarf Planet series. So look for the pre-order link everywhere. Kathy.
I'm Kathy Biehl. My website is empowermentunlimited.net. My Patreon is patreon.com/Kathy Biehl. And my YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian. I got a branding issue, I know. Anyway, I have forecasts for every week, new moon, full moon, month, and I have daily forecasts at my Patreon. That's all I'm going to say for now.
Cool. So Kathy's going to do her usual rundown of the news that has happened, but can I just mention I'm so excited that the news is starting to spread of the election interference that we all knew happened, but there's more and more articles springing up here, there, and everywhere. And so anyway, Kathy, on with the other news.
That's on my list. I'll just clarify that it was picked up by some kind of news aggregator, a couple of different sites that aren't really reporting. And from that, in this last week, it spread to the Associated Press and Newsweek. So the concept of somebody fiddled with things has hit the mainstream. And so continue to watch that. All right, so things that have happened that have been playing out our forecasts. I'm going to start with courts. And in the we don't like this or the lesser good news, or the not good news or the pro-Trump news, an appeals court has allowed the White House to block the Associated Press from the press room because the court says the president controls his private workspace. How a public part of the White House is a private workspace, I don't know. And I'm sure if the AP appeals this up to SCOTUS, they're going to agree with that. Just a hunch. A DC appeals court lifted a ban on an executive order that stripped union rights and collective bargaining rights for about 2/3 of the federal workforce. And as that goes up, I suspect that the SCOTUS majority will side with it again. And because SCOTUS allowed DOJ access to Social Security data, despite the Privacy Act. All right, so on the other side, there's a court order that Trump cannot block nonprofit grants to LGBTQ groups. There's a preliminary injunction that has been issued restricting how DOJ can access federal worker data in the Office of Personnel Management database on the grounds of violating the Privacy Act, how that's going to square with what the Supreme Court did with DOJ and the Social Security info does not bode well. A couple of days before a sanctions requests were due in the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. Mysteriously, he was returned to the U.S. after a court in, I believe, Kentucky, maybe, indicted him for human trafficking and God knows what else. So we'll see what happens with that. There have been other people who've been apprehended by ICE who have been ordered released also in the last week. More in the wrecking ball arena, the entire Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board has resigned after the administration denied awards to maybe 200, a substantial number of people who've been given grants for the 2025-2026 academic year, entire board. And the Department of Justice said that Trump can abolish national monument designations. So there's some out in the West that I think he wants to eye. Also, he's paving the Rose Garden to make it look more
Oh,
like Mar-a-Lago. And RFK
oh,
Jr. removed the entire Center for Disease Control Vaccine Advisory Panel. That's 17 people. In the pushback department, Walmart heiress has bought a full-page ad in the New York Times supporting the No Kings marches. We'll see what
oh,
happens to Walmart as
wow.
a result of that. Rand Paul is continuing to
Mm,
push against the budget bill, and he and his family got uninvited from a party at the White House. He has made a statement that that was petty. Gee,
mm,
okay, whoops. A lot of members of the GOP have said they're not going to be attending the um, parade in DC on the 14th, which is supposed to have rain. The
good. I hope
Smithsonian
it's
Board
heavy.
The
Sorry.
Smithsonian Board of Regents had a meeting, and Vance and Chief Justice Roberts are like ex officio members of the board. And the
Mm,
Smithsonian issued a statement authorized by the Board of Regents that the institution is independent of the White House. And this came after Trump tried to fire the head of the National Gallery um, in the election interference department, besides what Louise brought up at the beginning, the Georgia Supreme Court found that a MAGA controlled election board exceeded its statutory authority in a bunch of initiatives that it put in place before the 2024 election. Also, just flag that there's an appeal that's going forward in New York State of 34 count felony conviction. Just see what happens with that. Then the Musk Trump feud kind of walked back a tiny bit. All
mm,
of Musk's tweets alleging all kinds of things about Trump have been taken down, but as you know, nothing is ever lost once it's on the internet. And possibly this came about for financial reasons. He did say basically that money would change his mind. And there were threats to get rid of contracts with Starlink and SpaceX. I predict that with Jupiter and other bodies moving through Cancer, that this feud will uh, heat up again. And oh, by the way, in the Starlink territory, United has taken Starlink off a lot of its flights because of interference with communications with towers.
mm,
Interesting. All right, then the
mm,
whole ICE and the military thingy, whatever. All right, so we have many instances of Trump treating the military as his personal battalion. He went to Fort Bragg, gave a speech with vetted attendees, only people who A, looked good, and B, matched his political beliefs were allowed to attend. And so this politicized an army event, a military event, which is not what has been done. And the attendees were offered the opportunity to purchase MAGA merchandise afterwards. Trump sent the National Guard to California. So basically, he federalized the state National Guard without the governor of California asking for it. I encourage people to follow accounts of people who are actually in
mm,
Los Angeles and in these various places because despite what some of the news reports are, the protests started out in like a 6 block area,
mhm,
6 blocks out of the entire county. So Governor Gavin Newsom has filed suit against Trump and the administration for sending troops in when he didn't authorize it. And you may have seen reporting that he wasn't allowed to go forward. That is not what happened. He didn't get an immediate injunction. The court gave the government 1 day to respond. So that's
mm,
the day that we're recording this. We'll see what happens with that. And other blue cities have been targeted for National Guard being sent out, for not just ICE raids, but we'll see. And ICE protests are spreading in advance of activity, particularly interestingly in Texas. People occupied the federal building in Austin, which is not surprising if you know much about Austin Democratic politics, but a bridge outside of downtown Dallas was
Mm.
also commandeered, and that's not so usual. So,
And but didn't Abbott activate their National Guard too?
oh, yeah, he's gonna do it. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. No, he's
I
just looking
thought he
for.
already had. I thought he already had.
Oh,
Hmm.
he did this
Hmm.
anyway. So he's going along
Hmm.
with it.
Yeah, of course he is. But yeah. But and if one more news outlet or reporter, I mean, obviously I don't watch Fox, calls what's happening in LA riots, I will bust a gut. I left comments all over the Bulwark podcast this morning because Tim Miller, who I love, kept calling them riots. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're not riots. Anyway, just be careful who you listen to and do
And be
follow
careful
people
where
in the
you
know.
are and what you do.
Yes, that too. So I'm just going to give a quick rundown of the aspects. I am going through to July the 20th, but I'm only picking out the bigger ones. And I just invite you to notice some themes, particularly with lots of aspects to Saturn and Neptune at the beginning of Aries. There are tons and tons, but we've also got a lot of planets changing signs and planets changing direction, going retrograde. So it's going to be a bit of a head spinner with lots of revisiting and shifts, and it's, well, a head spinner. So
Can I
I'm,
just say one, can I
yeah.
say one thing before you go into that? Just so
Mhm.
you understand why we're going at this far out is Louise is going on holiday for a couple
Oh,
of
yeah,
weeks. So we are not going to be posting videos for
for two
2 weeks,
weeks.
2 weeks. Now, I will have on selected topics on the Professional Aquarian channel, but Louise and I will not be back as a duo until July, beginning of
Yeah.
July. So we're going to give you the lay of the land. You can
Mm-hmm.
continue to watch things before then.
Because I'll be visiting family and friends in England, and I kind of feel like I should pay attention to them a little bit. Anyway, so the quick rundown of the aspects. We'll probably talk more about what they all mean as we look at the charts too. But starting tomorrow, Friday the 13th, the sun is square the nodes. Now, I've mentioned it before. It's often called the moon wobble or the bendings. And it often brings kind of events or disasters. And we've already seen a plane crash in India. So I'm not saying there'll be more, there may not, but there's always been, it's a turning point. It's halfway between the eclipses. So it's a pretty big deal when the sun squares their nodes. And then on to June the 15th, another big day. We have Mars in Leo at 28 degrees Leo, square to Uranus at 28 Taurus, and that's on the ascendant of a certain person. We mentioned that a bit last week, but we'll go into more detail. And on the same day, June the 15th, Jupiter, now in Cancer, squares Saturn, and then, of course, will also square Neptune and in the couple of days afterwards. So they're cardinal signs, so that's initiating change. It's a big deal because they've all just changed signs. So
May I say
then,
one thing about that?
mm,
May I
yeah.
interrupt you and say one thing about that? So Jupiter squaring Saturn and Neptune will amplify
Mm,
their new impact, and I think things will start to become pretty clear what
mm,
this might mean for each of us as individuals, but definitely on a national scale.
yeah. And I did a whole presentation on my YouTube with slides, if you want, about Jupiter square Neptune. Sorry, Jupiter square Saturn and Neptune, and Jupiter going through Cancer. So it is a big deal because they've all just recently changed signs as well. It's really going to push things forward. And one other thing is, it's what's called an opening square. So Jupiter being the faster moving planet, that means it's moving towards an opposition after this. And so that is the action phase of things really moving forward too. So on June the 17th, Mars, after a long journey through Leo, because Mars got to 6 Leo and retrograded back into Cancer, Mars will enter the sign of Virgo, and that's going to have a big shift in emphasis. Mars in Virgo is very driven to both critique and do the right thing, get down to the details, find out information. It's kind of got an investigative quality to my mind. Anything you want to add about that?
We're all going to get a fix it gene. There'll be a
Yes,
let's, how can we clean this up? What can we do to improve this?
exactly. Then June the 18th, continuing the Jupiter squares to Saturn and Neptune. Jupiter squares Neptune exactly on June the 18th. So on June the 20th, that's the solstice, the sun enters Cancer. But on that same day, Mars, newly in Virgo, makes an aspect of adjustment, quincunx or inconjunct, to Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So something is really going to start to, we're going to have to make adjustments. The world's going to start making adjustments. And Mars, again, being the faster moving planet, is kind of the action planet there, making the adjustment. That's how I read it. You?
No, definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And on June the 22nd, Mars again sextiles Jupiter. So all these planets are just speaking to each other. You know, Jupiter has just squared them, Mars is. So all these planets that have just changed signs are speaking to each other, and they are the big hitter planets because they are the slower moving planets overall. Then also on June the 22nd, the Sun will square Saturn. So there's another one. So the Cancer Sun now, because the Sun has just moved into Cancer, will repeat the square that Jupiter just made. And then we'll, of course, square Neptune on June the 23rd. So there's repeated hits to these planets. And then on June the 24th, a little bit of a switch. Mercury will square, well, actually on the 23rd, Mercury will square Eris in Aries, and then Mercury will square Chiron in Aries. And I mentioned, like on June the 1st, we had Venus, Chiron, and Eris all at 25 degrees. Well, you know, Venus has moved on, but Chiron and Eris, the table turner, are still working together. So it's a square. Expect more table turning. And
In
more
the
moves
news.
towards, yes, in the news.
The
Yeah.
news.
Yeah, and on the 24th, also the Sun meets Jupiter at 3 degrees of Cancer, right before a new moon on June the 25th. And one thing I haven't got on my list, but I happen to know because I looked at a couple of things, asteroid chaos is right there in the mix as well. And, you know, new moon, dark moon, we're a Cancer country as well. Jupiter expands everything. 24th and 25th, that new moon is a big deal as well. So, and Jupiter's happy in Cancer as well. So, but also a lot of people's self-preservation instincts will be up with all of this, and where their basis of security is under threat. But of course, that applies to the rising nationalism as well, I do have to say. June the 26th, we've just got a couple of aspects of opportunity, a sextile aspect. Mercury, now at the 29th degree of Cancer, Mercury was moving really fast through Cancer, sextiles Uranus, and that's at 29 degrees, the anoretic degree. So it's a tense information. Mercury and Uranus both kind of mind energy and information. Uranus more shocking, usually bolts from the blue, even though it's so-called sextile more minor aspect, because it's at the anoretic degree. I kind of think that's probably a big day for the news.
Can I add something
And
there, please?
mm,
So earlier when Mercury was at the final degree of Gemini and met with Jupiter,
Mm,
that's when the whole mess with the
yeah.
Musk Trump thing blew into like, oh God, could it really get any bigger? Why it did.
Mm,
So there will be an extreme quality to whatever there's a
mm,
window opened onto with Mercury sextile Uranus, but also it could have a really strong element of uh, stretching back or like finding out what Uranus's time in Taurus has meant, because this is the
mm,
last time that Mercury in Cancer is going to make this aspect to
mm.
Uranus and Taurus in our pretty much our lifetimes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, unless you're really, really young. And then just a little bit later on June the 26th, the Cancer Sun, remember we just had this new moon conjunct Jupiter, makes another sextile aspect of opportunity to Mars in Virgo, fairly newly in Virgo again. These are both those aspects, Mercury, Uranus, and Sun, Mars, are in earth and water signs. So they've got this more kind of yin energy to them, and they are both driving things forward. It's again a big day. But then, as well, on that day, Mercury, after aspecting Uranus, moves into Leo and starts to head towards a retrograde. So Mercury is going to start slowing down towards the next retrograde in the sign of Leo and is going to start activating all of the um, aspects that Mars made in Leo during its retrograde and passing all those degrees. And we'll talk about that as Mercury starts to aspect some of those things. Um, and then the last aspect on June the 27th is Mercury, newly in Leo, will trine Saturn. And then early the next day, June the 28th, will trine unbroken flow aspect Neptune in Aries. So there's Saturn and Neptune being activated again, and it's at 1 and 2 degrees of Leo and Aries fire signs. And one of the oppositions between Mars and Pluto was at 1 degree, the middle one, wasn't it?
I would expect a
Mm-hmm.
spiritual warrior to speak out in a really,
Mm-hmm.
really impassioned leadership way. Your choice as to
Mm-hmm.
who it might be.
Yep. And the next day, June the 29th, Mercury again hits 3 degrees of Leo, which was the degree of the last Mars Pluto opposition. And Mercury opposes Pluto because Pluto is retrograde and is going back over that degree again. So, not that he ever quite left it. So, coming back, bring things coming back in from all the things we've been looking at for the last few months.
And I'll just clarify that Mars opposing Pluto is a fundamental predicate influence for the administration that's currently
Oh,
occupying power. So this definitely, there could be major information about what happened in the election.
yeah, yeah. Because was it the first or second opposition was the day before the election? So
The first one, and then there was one the day the election was certified.
that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So on July the 1st, and there's less aspects I'm going to look at, but I do think they're important. Venus will meet Algol, and I do mention that so-called demon star beheading because Algol was involved in the first Mars Uranus square. So we've just had another Mars Uranus square, and Venus also met Uranus last year at the discovery degree of dwarf planet Ceres 2323, which is such an interesting number. If you follow my writings, I talk about that a lot. But Venus is also going to meet Uranus. So I think it's important to note that this kind of more angry, kind of rebellious energy is being activated with that conjunction. And because that is followed by July the 4th. Does that date ring a bell for anybody? Venus will meet Uranus at the last tenth liminal anaretic degree of Taurus on the day that Neptune to Aries, another hot degree, Venus star point, stations retrograde, and then Venus slips into Gemini that morning on July the 4th. So we've got a planet stationing retrograde. And now these slower planets, they go retrograde every year, but those days around the station retrograde or the station direct can be very tide-turny. So the moon also changes signs early that morning. So July the 4th is a rather interesting day. Do you want to add anything to that? No. And then July the 6th, quickly, Venus has slipped into Gemini and sextiles aspect of opportunity. Venus in Gemini, which was the star point before last in 2024, aspects Saturn and Neptune. And Neptune is still at the station degree. So Venus is activating all of those things. And Venus is both money, relationships, values, what we value, all of those things. So I think there's going to be some changes in those areas, right?
Oh, and I would just point out, Venus can also be women. So there could
Oh, yeah.
be a lot happening involving women who are spiritual leaders or spiritual warriors or impassioned, bigger picture, pushing their own mission forward.
And then July the 7th, Uranus moves into Gemini for the first time in 84 years. And whilst Uranus will go retrograde later and go back and revisit Taurus for a little while, this, along with all the other slower moving planets changing signs, is huge. And on that day, Venus will make an unbroken flow aspect from Gemini to Pluto in Aquarius. Air signs, lots of news, lots of chatter, radical shocks, I think, sometimes with that ingress days where planet changes signs often bring something, I think, as well. So revisiting again those hot degrees. Quickly through the last lot, July the 10th, we have a Cancer full moon, which is aspecting some of the charts, and we are a Cancer country, so we're going to look at the USA chart. We'll probably mention that again when we look at that. Full moons, heightened energy. Then July the 13th, Saturn stations retrograde. So another planet turning around from our perspective. So much change this month. And then lastly, pretty much July 17th and just after, the Sun, still in Cancer, will square Eris and Chiron. So those two still traveling together. So something again is going to be really activated around table turning and healing. Then July the 18th, Mercury stations retrograde at 15 Leo, which happens to be a world point. The 15-degree marks of fixed signs is a world point. So that's huge again. And at the same time, Mercury will make an aspect of opportunity to Venus in Gemini before Mercury starts revisiting everything. So, but if you remember, I just said that the Sun squared Eris and Chiron on July the 20th. Eris stations retrograde as well. So, oh my goodness. So just too much to mention. And then pretty much lastly, before the Sun slips into Leo and leaves Cancer on July the 22nd, Mars on July the 20th will conjunct the Virgo South Node. So you can see Mars is moving pretty quickly through Virgo, lots of action, lots of doing the right thing. But when it activates the South Node, it's like, what do we want to let go of and move and change, basically. Anything to add about that one?
Well, I have a couple of points about the arc that we're going through.
Mm,
We're in the next couple of weeks, and maybe 5 weeks from when we're recording this. So
mhm,
between now and July 20th, we have a terrific amount of energy that is exposing us more and more to to a new phase that we are
mm,
collectively moving into. And that kicks in with a vengeance by the time Uranus also changes signs early in July. So lots
mm,
of figuring out where we're heading, what is going on, how our individual lives are changing, how our
mm,
collective world is changing. And watch the Venus transits in particular, because as we get into July, by those later events that Louise mentioned, Venus is going to be in the US chart in the house of partners and allies and open enemies.
mm,
Women are increasingly playing a very, very public role. And we'll just wait and see who
mm.
fits the bill for that.
And incidentally, because I work with the Venus star point a lot of these aspects, particularly the Mars one, are around the superior, they call it, or the exterior star point in Gemini. That was in the summer of 2024 as we were going towards the election. And that one was conjunct the north node of Uranus. So the north node of planets is kind of like the planet's actions on steroids in many ways. And there's an excellent book by Mark Jones about those nodes. But the revolutionary energy of these protests is going to build in a nutshell, in my opinion, as a
No
result
argument.
of what's happened since then. Okay, so sharing charts. Which chart first?
Oh,
Shall we look at the man of the moment?
yeah. Okay. We've had lots of requests to look at Gavin Newsom's chart, the governor of
Mhm.
California, who has filed the lawsuit because of uh, his National Guard being federalized without his request.
Mm. So this is his natal chart. He has Virgo rising. He's a Libra sun, and that kind of I don't find him personally attractive, but many people do. Libras and have often got that kind of more glamoury kind of thing. But he's Virgo rising with Pluto and Ceres sitting exactly on his rising degree. And this is about, no, you're not meeting our needs. And I am the powerhouse here. Of people with Pluto on the ascendant are often quite intimidating. And if anybody watched his um, speech, or if people find them intimidating because they are very powerful, I should say. If anybody watched his speech calling Trump out, that's kind of that his Virgo going full on towards it. His Jupiter is conjunct the planet, the asteroid of wise justice, Pallas Athena, and that happens to be on the ascendant of the Donald. So there's other things before we look at the transits. What would you like to say as
Well,
well?
that
Mm.
conjunction gives him he can strategize like crazy. He's
Oh,
not someone who simply acts and reacts. He
mm-hmm,
has a tight square between the sun and the moon in his chart. They're both in cardinal
mm-hmm.
signs, and that moon in Capricorn would also be incredibly cautious. So this is not a shoot from the hip kind of person,
Oh,
but when he does act, it goes. And to that end, I would also point that he has Saturn conjunct Eris in the seventh house, and it's opposite Juno. He is wired to, he can go after. You come at him, you
oh,
regret coming at him.
he also has almost exact square between Mars and Uranus, Mars and Pluto, sorry, and his ascendant in that case, and Ceres. And I was born with a Mars Pluto square, and I do know how incredibly driven we can be, to the point that it's overly pushy for some people, but yeah, it is what it is. We're just born with it. So
Mhm.
very assertive, very, especially because it's tied in with this. And, he is not going to take any of this um, lying down. So, like him or not, he's built for this moment. And why? Because the transiting nodes, which are usually connected to the eclipses as well, though, are sitting over the next few days as all this is happening on his ascendant and descendant. The south node on his ascendant Pluto Ceres conjunction, kind of, he's kind of looking at what's happening and going, no, we have to move to this more Piscean energy on the descendant of we're all in this together, and we have to support all of those lesser abled to support themselves. And of course, right now, the today, the sun is also square the nodes, as I mentioned, with all the transits, and the transiting Mars is about to hit his Jupiter Pallas Athena conjunction as well. Huge.
He will,
He's driven. Yeah.
yeah,
So
only becoming more forceful. And I'll point out that we did, Louise did mention that Mars is moving into Virgo, and by
mhm.
late July, it's going to move across his Pluto and his
Oh yes.
ascendant and his Ceres. So he's not going to go out of the
Oof.
news. He's not going to stop what he's doing. You
And I
know,
think one of the last aspects I mentioned was that Mars and the South Node will be exactly conjunct on his ascendant, which is huge, and square his natal Mars. So, wow. Yeah. Good luck with this, Donald.
truly, yeah, and we'll point out that his Jupiter Pallas Athena conjunction is on top of Trump's Mars and ascendant.
Mhm.
And so when Mars in the sky is squaring Uranus in the
Oh,
sky, so this is making a square to Uranus in Newsom's ninth house of immigration, but also the courts.
yeah.
I would suggest that the first court order is going to be in California's favor and against Trump.
Mm. Well, I mean, on the exact Mars Uranus square, which is next Sunday, June the 15th, Mars will be at 28 degrees 54 minutes, which is 1 minute from exact with Pallas Athena, who is strategy as well, courts. Jupiter is the judge in many ways as well. So, woo, that's, and it's on Donald Trump's ascendant. So, whoa. And
Hmm.
we can quickly look at that Mars just to people see the kind of progress of these planets. July the 20th, which was kind of the end of the period that I looked at, the Mars and the South Node will meet just before Mars goes into his first house, which is always the start of a new cycle as well. And Mars kind of like loves that first house, new beginnings. So, oh, and look where Venus will be there.
Yeah, and it's squaring Mars.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Mm. And these
Yep.
are mutable signs, by the way, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Gemini. And this is, usually people with very strong mutable energy are very good at processing information and speaking about it as well, and so on. So, yeah, this is another big turning point. So watch him over the next few weeks.
In a big way. And I'll just point out
Mm.
that you mentioned Venus up there at the top of the chart. It's opposite. It will be opposite his Mars at
Oh, yeah.
20. So a couple of things about his Mars at 20 Sagittarius.
Mm.
First off, those two together are both squaring his ascendant and Mars on July 20th. So they're making a T square, which is like
But
big pressure pushing completely to, well, if you count the nodes, it's a grand
mm,
cross.
yeah,
Uh,
or just his angles too. Yeah,
mm,
yeah.
that's big.
Mm-hmm.
But the second
Mm-hmm.
thing is Mars at 20 Sagittarius. The full moon was at 20 Sagittarius the day he filed that lawsuit at 20 Sagittarius over political matters, over immigration, over the law, over policy. So that was big, and it's also on Trump's moon.
North Node conjunction.
So he's wired to be the person to do this.
And just bringing in, another asteroid, Vesta, is often related to the state and the heart. And he's so wired to do this. Yeah.
Hmm. He
Hmm.
was the one.
Yeah. Yep. 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 So I'll clear those. Anything else we want to say about him, or shall I just put the USA chart with him first of all? Or
Oh, maybe that would be a fun thing to look
Mhm.
at. I haven't done that.
Yeah, we can just look. I'll put the USA chart in the middle. So Gavin Newsom's Uranus is, well, look at all of this up in the ninth house of
His
immigration, courts, foreign lands, all those kind of things. Of
and
in
his
the
Pluto is on the Neptune.
Yes, yeah. But Uranus is, you know, about to change signs. So Uranus by transit is about to go into an air sign, and which will aspect the 1 degree Libra midheaven of the USA, and it's very close to his Uranus too. So again, wired for this moment in so many ways, right? And
Oh
if
yeah.
you remember that Grand Cross or that we looked at with his Mars and things, we've got another one here really. So his Mars is opposing the Mars of the USA. That's activating Donald Trump's
Yes.
eclipse that he's born on. I hadn't seen this before. I'm just like, ooh. And it's
Wow.
square his powerful Pluto and his ascendants up there too, really. So on the Neptune of the USA. So I've mentioned it about some other charts we've looked at. I kind of think he's on a spiritual mission as well. He's like, not on my watch. He's another one saying that.
Hmm.
Oh, and you
And his
beforehand
son's on the, yeah,
mentioned, mhm, yeah,
his son's on the US Saturn, so talk about law
mm,
and order. That's what he's all about, actually.
yeah, and that's square to the sun of the USA, pretty much. They're both um, square the 13-degree Cancer sun. So it's just kind of wild, really, to be quite honest. And I just noticed, I hadn't really looked at his nodes, but his nodes are at 28 degrees. South node Libra, North node Aries. Incidentally, that's the full moon that Kamala Harris was born on. But of course, this is aspecting Donald Trump's ascendant too by a trine or unbroken flow
Hmm.
aspect. So, yeah, because it's trine his Jupiter and Pallas Athena, which are up in.
So
Is he a attorney? Is he a trained lawyer?
I do not know.
A lot of politicians are. I don't know if he is or not. But either way, he's probably got very good legal advice. And I think he, with this chart, will be kind of able to run rings around the Donald's attempts legally, I think, in many ways. Right.
Yeah, and his
Mhm.
uh Neptune is exactly sextile, the US
Oh,
Neptune. And that's the generational thing. All right. So
mm,
anybody who's born around when he was is positioned to have opportunities to grapple with what Neptune in Virgo in the ninth house has meant for the US, has to do with borders, immigration, racism, the role of the church,
mhm.
separation of church and state, all those things.
I even like the fact his Capricorn moon is pretty much on the cusp of the USA's second house if we use this chart. Because Capricorn, um, is very determined and also very determined to uphold the rule of law, I would say, in many ways. Hmm.
Mm.
Would you not agree? And second
Oh,
house is our
yeah, like
values and self-worth and all that. Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, I don't have a lot more to say about this, but he is definitely the man for this moment. But it's kind of got this I don't like the word fate, but this destined kind of feel to it in many ways, I feel, because of the nodes coming up to sit on Gavin Newsom's ascendant and descendant. I've been watching a lot of our fellow astrologer Steve Judd, and he did a whole thing about fate versus destiny. And I
Hmm.
prefer destiny because fate has got this other kind of tone to it. Those two are destined to kind of come together at this moment, it feels like. And, maybe it was the wrong place to start with this fight. Right?
Well, it didn't start with this fight.
Well, oh no, 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 no. But this particular episode of
Uh-huh.
this fight, shall we
Uh,
say? Yeah. So yeah, and he doesn't give a toss, Gavin Newsom, if Donald Trump's calling him a terrible governor and failed governor and all his usual insults. He doesn't care. No.
Nope. Um, well, can we look at just the US chart and maybe
Oh,
put
absolutely.
the Mars
Oh,
Uranus square around it?
absolutely.
Here we go.
June the 15th. So here's Mars in the sky now, if you like, and here's Uranus over here. So what do you want to? Oh, opposing the making a T-square
Right.
to the USA's moon and Pallas Athena. Just wise justice, moon the people, right? So yeah.
Something about the order of business, the way we're doing things, the way things are being run,
Mm-hmm.
being it's forced change, forced
Mm-hmm.
illumination, forced awakening, forced aha.
Mm-hmm.
And Uranus has come off a trine to the US Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
It was sitting in a trine for a large portion of this year to
Mm-hmm.
that spot. And when it retrogrades, it's going to go back that far and revisit at the end of the year, right?
Not exactly, but to that degree, yeah.
Yeah, to that
Yeah.
degree. So
Yeah, and
so
I also notice, my lovely favorite asteroid, one of them anyway, is it's having a Pallas Athena return. So this is all part of this T square
here we
here,
go.
and then there's that Pluto as well, kind of being activated by all this too. So, and we just saw those degrees highlighted in Gavin Newsom's chart as well. So.
And as you're looking at that, what jumps out at me is that the South Node in Virgo is sitting on Neptune. So we are looking very,
Mhm,
very much at the issue of borders and the way we've handled things and
mhm.
divisions between people and lines of authority. And I'm thinking more in terms of line, not the authority part, but the line part, the division
Yes,
part.
yeah,
Um,
and also the lying too, claiming. I mean, the borders and immigration has been a problem for a long, long time. There's no good path for a lot of immigrants coming from different countries, and various things. So this kind of shows up a lot of the leaky holes, I think, as well, and brings a determination to speak the truth about that. The Republican and Trump's messaging, particularly, keeps going on about Biden's open borders, which no, they were not. Or, yeah, they deported plenty of people too. It's pretty much the same policy in place, right?
yeah, just weren't running through fields and taking kids out of classrooms.
No, no, no. I mean the but the
Yeah,
immigration
right, right,
actual
right.
policy. Yeah. Hmm. Mm,
I want to point out with the North Node opposite the U.S. Neptune, there's been a really interesting unifying vibe
mm,
going on. Disparate communities coming together. I read this morning that the L.A. biker gangs have come together to stand against ICE. So they've
ooh,
stopped the gang war. Maybe it's a pause. Stop the gang war to stand together against ICE. I have also
wow.
seen somewhere, was it Utah? It was a very unexpected place.
Well,
Uh,
my
a
state.
a police force that took the knee along with the
I, s-
protesters.
I saw the video of that. I don't know where it was. I don't think it was Utah, but even so, it was quite profound. And then one of them got up and hugged a black woman as well, I believe,
Might have
right
been
after.
Iowa. I mean,
Mm. It was
Ohio.
one of
It's
the
an
red states.
unexpected place. Yes, an
Hmm.
unexpected place of solidarity between the police and the protesters. Now, yes,
Mm.
there have been plenty of examples of even local law enforcement doing really scurrilous things, but there is an underlying push toward how do we have unified interests
Yeah,
that is
definitely.
being birthed by what is going on right now.
And I'm just going to put the new moon in, if that's all right.
Good. I was going to suggest
Mm.
that. That's good.
Because it's right on the Venus of, well, is it for, yeah.
US Venus, what do we value?
Yeah, right on. Yeah, with Jupiter right on it. And if you remember, asteroid chaos is on this new moon as well. And so, this is the seventh house, open enemies, they call it often. But this is likely to kind of, reveal more about the enemy within, should we say? I feel like.
And Mars and Virgo in the house of
Hmm.
the legal system is in an opportunity aspect, opening a window to doing something, to getting information, for getting granular details about what
Hmm.
has been happening, what is going on, and Pluto in the sky station at retrograde Pluto in a it is retrograde, right? I
Yes.
thought it was retrograde.
It's if it's red, it's
Oh, I
retrograde.
see. That's how it works. Is in an
Hmm.
adjustment aspect to that Jupiter and also the US Venus. And
Hmm.
I'm seeing Jupiter in Cancer as really, really encouraging us to find our safe places, our own refuge. And I'll just add to all this. And I meant to say this at the outset of the astrological aspects. Right now, as we're going into this, Venus is in Taurus, which is very much it's
Mm.
her home base, but it's very focused on what's here now, what's in front of me, what are my resources, what can I taste, touch,
Mm.
consume, and Mercury is in a very emotive mode at the same time. So with
Mhm.
Venus in Taurus and Mercury in Cancer, they are pumping up what Jupiter is already pumping up. They're like supporting
Yeah.
it to find your places of refuge, find where you have comfort, where can you share it,
Mhm.
where can you share it? And food is a big part of it. Art,
Mhm.
music, all a big part of it, and expressing
Mhm.
emotions, all a big part of it.
And a lot of the protests, not riots, are being quite creative about how they do things. That's part of it as well. But to add to that, just before this new moon, the USA's Mercury is at 24 Cancer. So Mercury, they'll have a Mercury return, well, we will be right before. And so that's activating that Mercury. But look at what the degree Venus is at on the new moon in that sign that she loves. Her home sign is on Vesta, the state, the hearth. This is, people are really fired up to, I think generally it's to preserve democracy. What else can I say? To preserve what we can of what was good about the USA. So, mhm. Not suggesting everything was perfect before anybody kind of dives in the comments, but I'd rather live here than some other places. as, as an immigrant. Any more to say about that? So,
Well, the only other thing I want to add is actually backtracking a little bit,
mm,
going back to what I was saying about Venus and Mercury and Jupiter working, collaborating right now.
hmm
A lot of the people who've been sent by Washington, they didn't factor in costs of lodging them or feeding them or
no,
giving them water. So protesters are feeding the National Guard. They're
it's
giving water to the National Guard. National Guard and Marines sleeping on the floor because
I know.
there's no place, because these people didn't think ahead, because
hmm
they haven't done this before. It's a very inexperienced group of ideologues. But
hmm
I bring it up as an example of acting in, we're in this together. A human is
hmm
suffering, a human needs food. I'm giving this human food. That's part of the potential of Venus in Taurus working with Jupiter in Cancer and Mercury in
hmm
Cancer.
And I'll just mention Saturn and Neptune again because they are both going retrograde this month, as if you can want to listen back through, and they're both going to head out right back to the IC, the very bottom of the US chart, which is the basis of stability and security. It's the home, and they are going to go back over this point yet again. So that's kind of got a revisiting quality as well. So and this is before the two come back into Aries early next year and meet at zero Aries there. So having them both station retrograde within days of each other and heading back there is also a big deal. And, just looking at their degrees, they're really speaking to Pluto as well and the Venus as well.
Mhm.
And, there's all those things at those first uh, 2 or 3 degrees of the signs all speaking to each other. And as we asked you to pay attention to at the start, Saturn and Neptune just keep getting aspected over and over again. So, but I see this as a good thing. I see it as more people kind of realizing what's going on. It could mean some of those National Guardsmen kind of just laying down their arms and going home and saying, I didn't sign up for this, or more policemen doing getting down on their knee. Um, you know,
Or National Guardsmen saying, I'm not showing up, because only a
hmm
very small percentage of the people who were told to go actually showed up so far in
Oh,
LA.
really? Oh,
Hmm.
really? I did not know that.
Yes.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. And I did. A friend of mine who lives in LA, who's obviously watching this conversation very closely, or this situation, she said there was a battalion of Marines, or maybe it's a battalion of ex-Marines or something, that were heading back to LA to support the protesters. I haven't seen that in the news, but
hmm,
she's usually pretty reliable, so she's very
no.
politically involved. So expect more like that. And as Cassie mentioned, like even some Republicans are not going to his big, beautiful parade. And what's happening with the bill? Did you? They're just
There are people
arguing
who are
it's
fighting
over
it. They're
it
still
still.
arguing of it. I think he wanted it rammed through as his birthday present. I don't think that's happening.
God, what a guy. Anyway, birthday present. Me.
Hmm.
Anyway, for now, I'm going to go off and have a lovely time. I'm going to Seattle first this weekend to visit my daughters. Then I'm 3 days later flying to England, so it's a bit full on. So you can see why I'm taking 2 weeks off. As Cassie mentioned, she's going to look at the New Jersey race on her professional Aquarian channel, and we'll be back right the July the 3rd, just before that big day, July the 4th, right? so so please like, subscribe both our channels, Professional Aquarian, my channel. Follow us anywhere else as well. Cassie's Facebook group is great. Cassie, anything you want to say? So
I've got a video up, 14-minute video about Jupiter and Cancer and various
mm,
ideas of ways that you can beneficially constructively express
Mhm.
this energy that's up on my site. But basically,
I've
take
got
care of
one too.
yourself. Yeah, take care of
Yeah.
yourself and take care of your
Mhm.
friends, your chosen family. Spend time with people you care about. I keep saying that. Remind yourself of why you get up in the morning and why we're
Yeah.
fighting this.
Yeah, definitely. Because cancer is family. So whether it's family of choice or your actual family or both, um, and yourself. Cancer is self-care, I think, as well. It's kind of where you need to go and, cuddle up under one of those introvert kind of blankets over your head to rest and restore so that you're more able to build some resilience, which is another good cancer word to go out and face what's happening in the world. Take care of you first. So for now, it's goodbye from me.
And me.